And live, Dima, here we are. I'm really happy to have this conversation with you. I know that you declared that you are semi-retired, but I want you to work a bit more, like you can't relax too much, you have so many things to do. But I mean, you had an exit, of course. Wild Apricot, if I'm correct, was the name of the company. Yeah,
the last one. Yeah.
The last one. And it's always good, I think. On one side, I remember when I had my first exit, on one side, it was very good. On the other side, after a while, you think, well, I want to do something more, so you're always if you're a serial entrepreneur, I'm imagining that you are always on so many things. So what's your focus now?
I'm totally unfocused right now. And actually, as you said, when I had my first exit, I didn't stop for a day, didn't stop to celebrate, nothing, just took the money, put it into the next business and just continued working, because it's really the mindset. At the end of the day, it's all about our mindset, the subconscious thinking, what are we supposed to do and what should we do and all of that stuff, right? And that thinking is pretty much gone for me. I no longer believe that any human being should do anything. I think that any and every human being can do whatever they want to do. So yeah, I'm totally unfocused, and
I love it.
I have all kinds of things, from my kids and relationships and relatives, and my girlfriend and my friends and everything. And I do a little bit of angel investing. I have some businesses that I invested in, and I help them. I do a bunch of mentoring and coaching, and in the last couple of months, a lot of my attention has been on Ukraine and supporting Ukraine, and against the Russian invasion.
I want to talk about it, but I really love the fact that you say that you are unfocused. And the other day, a journalist asked me, what's your dream, And I said, I don't have any dreams. I just want to be good in the present. I want to do good. I want to enjoy this moment. I want to, I can't be always, with this pressure. I don't know. I was born in Italy, and the pressure, if you don't work in Italy, I don't know, all the time, and you are not coming out, you're coming out from the office before 10 o'clock in the evening, people look at you like, you are a lazy bastard, that's a kind of feeling. And you think, why should it be like that, So especially when you can.
It's not about the Italy, right? I think it's really about our different environments, and that, that's true for people in different countries. Might also be related to age. You said you're 50, I'm turning 50 in a couple of months. And yeah, for me, if you will, what people are looking for, end of the day, they're looking for happiness, but they're trying to find it through all these indirect means, by success and relationships and children and sex and travel, whatever, right? But it cannot be found in any of this stuff, right? No. But it's and what you said, I very much can subscribe to that, is that most of the time humans live with some hopes for the future or fears of the future, and they struggle against that. But when that stuff is gone, you can finally live in the hope-free present, and that is where happiness can be found, only right now.
Yeah, which is great. And the other thing, I didn't think I was going to talk about this with you, but I mean, I really enjoy it. Is because usually if I interview CEOs or entrepreneurs, they're always kind of projecting super success. Let's do this. We're going to achieve this. This is the goal.
Absolutely. I'm so busy. I have so much stuff to do.
I don't have time, to see my kid. And I understand that, because maybe they have a public company, maybe they have, they have to project success, and everyone has to join.
They're scared. They're scared.
But they're scared, because if they say the truth, it's different. And also, I really sometimes, even now, I sometimes yesterday I was 2 hours in the garden doing nothing. Nothing. I was there doing nothing, and I felt guilty at the beginning. And then I thought, you know what? I still want to stay a couple of hours. Just doing nothing, because like you or like every, person that want to do stuff. Of course, I always do millions of things, but let's say nothing happened. It's not that I don't work for anyone, so I don't have a boss calling me. But still, I was thinking, it's crazy. I'm 50 years old and I still feel guilty that I take some time to enjoy this beautiful day that is never happening in Brighton because it's always raining. But it's crazy. It's a guilt. Why are we so guilty?
Well, it's just like we're not used to feeling the sense of guilt. It's just an emotion. And because we don't want to feel that guilt, that's kind of been with us from very early programming, then we're trying to escape that by being busy. And it's really fascinating, right? Because I'm sure that you have seen that being entrepreneur for many years, is that most of the time people are trying to be very busy, and then the next level, they try to be effective. But the thing is, like, to achieve a lot, you don't have to be busy. You don't even necessarily have to be effective. You know well that some things, it's all about your emotional balance, right? Because some things you know what's important, but you keep postponing that because somehow it's really difficult for you to do. But when you eventually find that peacefulness was all of the emotions, then you can do the important stuff. And sometimes you cannot, and then you don't blame yourself for that. But the thing is, like, sometimes, like, a focused conversation with somebody, let's say you run a company, right? And you can keep very busy. Like, for example, for entrepreneurs, it's very common that we want to solve problems. So we are so happy when people come to us with problems and we solve them. And what happens? People come to us with more problems, more people, because this is like, we get off on that, they get off on that, and it's a happy cycle. And at some point you can stop. And, when people come to you with problems, you can stop and, like, hey, let's go for a walk in the park. Let's talk about what do you think should be done about this. Let's talk about why this hasn't been done yet, right? And then you can start having very different conversations, right? Because end of the day, it's not about us not knowing what we have to do and stuff like that. It's about us not doing what we're scared to do, what we don't want to face, and all of that stuff, right? And when that shifts, then it becomes very different. The impact that you have, whatever you do, every decision you take, that impact will have all kinds of consequences. They will be infinite, everlasting. There will be good and bad consequences and stuff like that. So the thing is, like, when you're peaceful and happy and you can share that with people around you, whether that be your colleagues, your friends, your family, and stuff like that, you actually already making a huge impact, right? And going to the topic of Web3 and stuff, when I look at my son Vitalik, and obviously he's a very smart guy and people appreciate him for that. But I can see that people also appreciate him for something different, like for his internal sense of freedom. He's free to wear all kinds of ridiculous pants on stage talking to people, and people are scared to do that, right? So when he does that, then some people are like, oh, he's so stupid doing that, right? But many others, they're like, oh wow, this guy can do this. Like, we love him for expressing the freedom that we all want to feel, but we are so scared to feel that freedom, right? So end of the day, this is what we're looking for. So it's really important to connect with the fundamental things that drive us, the drive for peacefulness and happiness and freedom and whatnot. And, then it becomes much more clear, like, how we're running after those things, but we're trying to do this very indirectly. We're thinking, oh, when I get this fancy car, Lambo, then people will know that I'm very successful, and finally I will feel the love from them, right? Because I cannot feel the love from myself. Yeah, or not, or you can do this directly, right?
It is. It's a great point. I got a friend. He has done an exit. I think 300 million pounds is the exit, and he was probably 80%, 90% of the company. So it was good. I mean, it wasn't like not billions, but I mean, it's still a definitely good amount of money. And then I saw, and he was so happy. He was so happy, man. We did it, we did it. And then I saw him like 3 months later, and he was like in a horrible office of a startup, working like crazy for this new startup. And I say, man, what are you doing? Like, why don't you just you to stop that. Do you really want to do that? And my feeling, tell me if you think is the right way to put it, and then we go talking about a lot of different other topics. But is it, when you talk with someone and there is that awkward moment where no one is talking, like, and you think, oh, I have to say something, and it's the same feeling sometimes that I see on entrepreneur. If nothing, you're not doing anything.
Yes.
I have to do something.
Totally.
Yeah.
It reminds me, like, do you know what vipassana is?
Yeah, sure.
Right, vipassana, right? So typically it's let's say 10-day intensive when you do, and for 10 days, all that you do is you just meditate. You don't read books, you don't listen to music, you don't walk, you don't talk, just that. So when I did this in Malaysia 4 years ago, it was so difficult, like, and eventually I realized why is that so difficult, because we're so not used to just being with all the emotions that we have. Like at some point, like initially I was like concerned, will I be hungry? Because we had breakfast at like maybe 6 a.m. We had lunch at 11, and that was it for the day. Two meals. But I was not hungry at all. And I realized that most of the time I was eating just to distract myself. Like most of the time, that's what we do. So that's what we constantly do with all of this stuff, is like food and talking to people and movies and walking. Is like we're uncomfortable with being silent, with being with what's happening. And we're trying to constantly find ways to distract ourselves. Yeah.
It is. You reminded me that at the dinner the other night, I met two people that they didn't know each other, and both they went to a silent retreat where they didn't talk for like 1 week or something. It was such a coincidence. Anyway, Dima, tell me about Ukraine and Russia, because it's a very, very important topic, of course.
Yeah.
And I just wanted first your let's say prediction. What do we expect from now on for economy impact and situation? How do you think we can get out of from there? And also the crypto impact, of course. I'm very interested. DAO use and so on.
Sure. I mean, for quick background, right? I grew up in the Soviet Union, and I'm Russian, ethnically Russian. I have some Ukrainian blood, like most Russians do. I also grew up in the region in Russia called Chechnya, which was one of the first wars, and after the breakup of the Soviet Union, Russia, bombed my hometown and totally destroyed it. I was not there already by the time, but I already saw kind of the way Russia does that, freeing people. So it's a horrible tragedy what's happening in Ukraine, and it's for people it's impossible to understand, but also it's kind of very easy to understand, because in Russia for hundreds of years it really was all about helplessness and fear and violence and aggression. So in Russia, people are really scared to be vulnerable, to look weak and whatnot, because people are also very scared of state. State is supposed to be all powerful, right? And also growing up, that kind of shaped my worldviews, because I saw how this centralized state, which was supposed to take care of us, of like healthcare and everything, education, it was abysmal. It was really malfunctioning, and that was my first insight into like, no, centralized structures cannot work, because so centralized structure is trying to figure out how much toilet paper and toothbrushes to send to my region, because there was not private enterprise, and it was failing all the time, right? Stuff like that. So that was my background on that. And the kind of like, I left Russia 22 years ago when Putin came into power, and I was kind of suspicious of what happened, and just watching kind of all of the things and the lies and the horrible things that happened in Russia since then. I kind of knew that Russia is really going into a very dark period, but even until recently, I could not have imagined that it would do this. But end of the day, Russian economy and it's been in a really bad shape, because it's an extremely corrupt state where basically they just sell oil. Most of the money goes to Putin, then his oligarchs then trickle down to his supporters and businesses servicing them. But most of the people are extremely poor. And then you can also see that on the news that Russian soldiers that are recruited from those poorest, regions, and they just loot in Ukraine because they've never seen, washing machines and stuff like that. Like in modern times, this year, 20% of Russian households don't have access to toilets inside of their houses, right? They're using outhouses. It's pretty like horrible. So anyways, so to distract people from what's happening in the country, then the last ditch attempt by Putin was to invade Ukraine. So it's a horrible tragedy. So many people have died, and my heart goes out to all of the suffering people in Ukraine, and so many friends. And back to the crypto connection, and I think also it's going to be one of their impulses for the world to further adopt the crypto. So many things are happening. Like one is crypto has proven to be very effective for Ukrainians to mobilize the support, from getting donations from the whole world to actually directing the crypto inside the country and organizing all kinds of support efforts. I'm in this chat group where there are a few hundred of crypto-related people, mostly Ukrainians and some Russians too, who are supporting Ukraine. And there is so much going on there. They are organizing all kinds of humanitarian aid. They buying, military equipment for the resistance and stuff like that. So crypto has definitely proven to be extremely efficient. And also Ukraine has been very forward-looking. They have been opening up to that, opening the regulations, adopting that, and I actually think that Ukraine has the really good chance to become their world leader in using crypto and decentralized technologies. And I very much looking forward to keep supporting them in that effort. So that's that. On the flip side, we're also seeing that then all of the sanctions that are being imposed on Russia, right? And there are a lot of discussions: should we do this? Should we not do this? Like, I understand their reasoning behind both sides, right? Because the sanctions will first hurt the poorest people and people who are not Putin supporters. But we have no other choice, because at this point we're trying to put as much pressure on Russia to stop this war, to stop the suffering, to stop their murders. So it's inevitable, right? But back to the crypto, right? That now that people have seen, oh, you know what? Like, end of the day, sanctions can happen, bank do all kinds of restrictions, and then all kinds of other organizations, they go in this crazy mode. They try just to follow the current trend, and they start doing random actions. So decentralized systems that are resilient, that are truly censorship resistance, are becoming more and more important. So I think this is one of the outcome. And some other things happening in the world, like, I don't know if you follow the news, but here in Canada, a couple of months ago, we had some protests, right? And then the Canadian government became very heavy-handed, and they did like this. They instituted this special censorship, financial censorship on the protesters. They were confiscating, or freezing their bank money, and even the crypto, which was stored on the exchanges, right? So I think all of us, people in the world, watching the news, watching what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia, around the world, we're all seeing, you know what? Those centralized institutions, they definitely losing our trust if they have not already lost that, right? So let's look at systems that actually are in our own hands, in our own control. And again, like, I grew up in the Soviet Union, and I saw how the centralized system was very rigid and very ineffective, right? And also I look now at modern Russia, and it looks to me that Putin is probably mentally ill with paranoia or something else, right? But the whole structure of Russia over the last few decades become extremely centralized. So now we have one maniac at the top of the country, and he's obviously crazy, but then the whole structure is all optimized for this guy to control all of the resources of the country, from military to everything. And this is the outcome, right? So for me, what a wonderful example for all of us to realize that, yes, like, decentralized technology, it's not just here to buy drugs and do this. It's really for all of us to prevent tragedies like this, because we have seen so much already, like how the states misuse our money, how churches misuse how mistreat our children and stuff like that, and how corporations misuse our private data. So I think that we actually enter in a new phase of adoption for all of these technologies.
What two questions. First, what do you think is the way out of this conflict? How is it possible to end this conflict, apart from a Putin accident that accidentally happened?
Yes.
And that's it.
I wish I knew. Like, all I can say is that I'm very inspired by the bravery of Ukrainians fighting for their land for their families against much bigger opponent with so much resources. All I can say that each one of us can contribute in many different little ways. We can ask our governments to continue supporting Ukraine, send them their weapons that they need. Each one of us, maybe we can donate here and there. Maybe we can talk to other people around us and help them understand what is going on. And also, I think that this whole thing, the world is uniting around this something very different. In the past, again, Russia is very corrupt, but also it has corrupted a lot of the stuff in the West. It's now obvious that Russians for many years been spending millions, tens of millions of dollars buying politicians all over the world, right? And those politicians then were happy to play the game and build all kinds of economic relationship with Russia and get their bribes and benefit from that. So I think that this can be a really wonderful moment for the world to kind of wake up from that and look back at this and again look at this and realize how much power we have been given our centralized political structures, and then look at this and say, okay, how can we change that, right? How can we wake up? And it's all about, again, people sometimes when they look at these big events and they try to find some very complicated story. Oh, it's a George Soros, NATO, blah, blah, blah. You know what? The world is not happening because of some complex story, some cabal, some alien lizards controlling our minds, whatever. It's happening because of all of those 7 billions of people. They all have their own views, their own actions, their own convictions. They act in different ways. So it's all from you and me. We have this conversation. We share our opinions. We argue about something. Then we act. I ended up getting involved in a whole bunch of different efforts. One of the wonderful efforts is called Ukraine DAO. Is a DAO which got started just before the start of the war, and they collected millions of dollars. They did so many awesome things. So again, we can get involved, we can speak out, we can share what we know, and we can also and not just look at the current conflict, at the current situation, the current tragedy, but also look around. Oh, you know what? Also, we can look inside of us, right? Because again, the story, if you greatly simplify what is happening, it's a story of Russia or somebody being really scared of something just because it's difficult to feel the fear. And from this fear, then we lash out in violence. So can we look inside of ourselves and figure out, oh, where are we being violent, right? I don't know if you're a parent, right? But quite often as parents, we quite often also become violent. We talk to our child and we're concerned, we want something good for them, but then we have our own fears and desires to project it to them. And then we talk to them, and then they say, "Oh, I want this." So we tell them, "No, you will do this," right? And the argument continues. At some point, say, "I said this," right? Then we become violent, and we think that this is the way we teach them to be better. But in fact, what we also teach them is we teach them that a stronger person can impose their opinions, their desires onto others through violence, right? And this is a very dangerous lesson. So there are so many lessons we can all take out of the current events and then apply again. Can we apply them to ourselves? Not just an abstract philosophize about stuff in Ukraine and whatever, but we can always look inside. What am I feeling? What am I doing? What are the ways that I have messed up? Looking at kind of what is the mess over there, and the mess that Russia is doing.
Good point. Start with yourself first. You
Yeah,
mentioned
always.
adoption. How better? What kind of factors and drivers and activities do you think are required to get a wider adoption of crypto in general? Because I speak with so many people, and of course in the tech sector, everyone got a wallet, blah 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 blah. If I move, the idea of ownership, and I'm in control of my money, for instance, or my digital objects, NFTs, then I have to handle that responsibility. And if you like the heat, don't stay in the kitchen, says the old quote. So what do you think is required to get a wider adoption so that people don't, maybe they're not scared, of losing all of the money? So what do you see there?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. For me, the number one thing right now, the focus for the Web3 industry has to be about the user experience. instead of like, because obviously Web3, blockchain, decentralized tech, there's a lot of complicated technologies that, have been developed. The level 2 stuff is so complex, and the foundational technologies are very complex, and people constantly misunderstand them. They use grossly oversimplified metaphors. But end of the day, we as humans, again, we want like something simple. We want the certainty that this is my money, nobody can take it away, or this is my NFT. And people are prone to mistakes. What if I lose my phone? What if this happens and that happens? So for me, it means that every Web3 project, they have to start with very deep thinking about who are the people they're targeting? What are the problems they have? I mean, this applies to startups in the Web2 era, but I think now at Web3, it becomes the dominant barrier to adoption, is that we are constantly focusing on technological solution instead of trying to understand who are specifically those people. Let's say we're talking about digital wallets. There are many of them, right? But most of them, they just like random collections of features, because I still have to see an awesome wallet that is focused on NFTs. Well, there are some that are doing a decent job, right? But maybe some other wallet, like they're all trying to do everything, most of them, right? But I think it's important to do this differently. And one example I want to give is Argent. This wallet, I think, is from France, and it's a smart contract-based wallet. And they've done away with their recovery phrase. Instead, they verify your identity through email and the phone. And it's a trade-off. And then you can actually use those concept of trusted people and stuff like that. So I think it's a wonderful experiment. It's far from ideal, but I really like what they're doing, right? So the focus on who are the people, what they want to do, are they investors, are they this and that? This is a core thing. I think that also the friction of the fees is really a big barrier still. And I'm really excited about all of the research that's gone into, because it's not a simple problem to solve, right? I've seen so many simplistic approaches. Oh, Ethereum is so stupid because they have high fees. I'll do a copy of Ethereum, which will be free. Well, you'll be spammed to death. You'll be DDoSed, because again, high fees are the reason of their foundational technology. People have been trying to use in blockchains to fight spam, and it's a big problem. It's again, like we have to build technologies that are designed for real humans, and humans. Some people want to just use stuff. Some people want to try to break stuff. Some people want to cheat and steal your money. So we have to design systems with realistic assumptions, right? So I think that solving the issue of fees, and again, like observing the crypto industry for the last decade, for me, it's pretty obvious that the solutions that, again, I'm obviously very biased, but the solutions developed in the Ethereum community, level 2 rollups and zero knowledge stuff, they seem to be our best chance of finally solving these problems, and we finally solved them this year. And I also do want to mention that, again, like Bitcoin, a wonderful invention, right? A wonderful technological invention that started this whole growth of many wonderful other projects on top of this. And I think Ethereum was the next stage of this that, again, opened the world to smart contracts and stuff. And I think that technologies always progress and improve, right? And obviously now it's becoming that some of the foundational technologies, for example, that are now used both in Bitcoin and Ethereum proof of work, they are also having huge environmental impact, right? And people are becoming mindful of that. And I don't think, again, like sometimes when we face a problem, we try to rationalize it away and say, no, it's perfect. And, look at all other technologies that waste energy. You know what? In computer technologies, we can always improve stuff. It's much easier to do than, in mechanical engineering, some other areas where you have to deal with physical stuff. So I'm extremely excited about Ethereum switching to proof of stake. That should happen sometime this summer, most likely. And that would reduce Ethereum energy consumption by a factor of like at least a few hundred, right? And I think, again, it's very, very important. So for me, those things that I mentioned, focus on user experience, really thinking through about the users. Second is dealing with the issues of fees while not reducing the security. And third is addressing the environmental impact. So I think those are three kind of very important factors for decentralized techs to gain wide adoption this year and the near future.
Got it. I was reading the news today about Elon and Twitter. Okay, it's just a saga. It's like Netflix, basically. So instead of watching, what did I watch? I watched recently We Crashed. Have you watched We Crashed, the WeWork Apple TV series? The story of
No, I
WeWork.
haven't.
It's funny. It's interesting. I mean, you'll like it anyway. So Elon is trying to buy Twitter, and so I was thinking, on one side, of course, if Apple or Facebook or Google say, look, here is a wallet, and boom, they get billions of people with a wallet. But on the other side, they come with a very centralized view of the world. Of course, I'm
Yes.
biased towards Web3 because I want to go
Yes.
in a decentralized world. I want to own my community. I want to own my money. I don't want someone between me and my 3 million followers. So, of course, I have a biased vision. On the other side, the adoption and the knowledge would be immediately much bigger. So how do you see the role of these big tech giants in these new scenarios? Is something that simply not fitting in, or is a way to match to marry the two worlds?
Yeah, it's also, for me, it's a matter of centralized versus decentralized systems, right? And again, when I look at centralized structures, centralized ways to govern countries and whatnot, most of the time, the consequences of that are really horrible. I've seen that in Soviet Union. We're now seeing what it ended up in Russia and whatnot. There are some other examples too, right? Again, like you can look at their economical miracle in Singapore, and people talk about this benevolent autocracy, and there is cost to that, whatever, but it might happen, right? So again, Twitter is a heavily centralized system. This is how it's been designed and built, and it's their business model based on ads and whatnot. I have a lot of positive feelings toward Elon Musk, and he's a character. He's a bit crazy. He's done a lot of awesome things, right? So in general, I think I kind of support this effort, because I think that under his leadership, his guidance, Twitter can do so much more than it's doing currently. I don't think it's a final solution. I do think that the future for me is really in us building decentralized social media tech, and the foundational technologies, they do have to evolve to support that, in terms of how they handle fees, the speed of processing transactions, and so many things. But I do think that's future. So I think improving Twitter is a good possibility. It's an intermediary step, but it's not really something that I believe that long term we would switch to different kind of systems that are decentralized, systems that are truly censorship resistant, and systems where we users we own our data instead of the corporation having control over that.
I have a question about it, and I don't know the answer, so I'm here. You here, so I can ask the question to you. I think a few months ago, I got an email from YouTube. I think I have, I don't know, 700,000 followers on YouTube alone, and the email was, "Dear Monty, we have closed your account, and you will never be able to open another account ever again in under any circumstances." That's it. That was the email. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. Also because I talk about business, marketing. I'm not talking about, religion, politics, or I don't know. So I called my contact in YouTube. I say, I don't know if it's a joke. I don't know. Tell me. So they immediately checked and say, no, sorry, it was a mistake. It's all fine. And I thought, wow, that's unbelievable. I spent 9 years on the platform, and I'm part of, in a very small, contribution to the success of the platform. And from one day to another, you can be erased easily without any possibility to discuss. So on one side, of course, I want a decentralized situation, a system. On the other side, the problem that I don't know how to answer and how to be addressed is, what happens if you have a decentralized system and, I start to spread fake news about you, and I organize, bots and software and 1,000 people that say, Dima is bad, Dima is bad. And there is no one that you can call or report to say, look, stop, that is not true. I can prove that it's not true. So I don't know how situations are not going out of control, knowing the human beings, as you said before, a lot of evil people and people trying to cheat and so on. How do you see all of these problems playing out in a DSO world?
Yeah, you're totally right. This is a very important issue, and there's no simple answer to that, right? So, end of the day, again, like recently I posted this image on Facebook and it was censored and my account was restricted for 24 hours. And the image, I still don't understand why it was censored, right? But I have, again, in this current setup, I'm just a small guy. They're a corporation. They can do whatever they want. They can shut down my account.
Yeah.
And, this is not the right balance for me, right? So if we take the other situation, imagine, okay, now we have this wonderful decentralized systems, and then people can do whatever, and they can post all kinds of horrible pictures, and there is no way for others to control that. Well, for me, it's still a preferable situation because I do believe in transparency and human ingenuity. Because as long as we have transparency, and then we can always build better and better engineering solutions. Because bots, they're the reality of the current centralized systems, very much so, right?
Yeah.
So, but if we had more transparency into this, right? Like, for example, if Twitter or Facebook social data was more accessible, and we could other engineers could have seen that, and also what if there was a competitive market for different interfaces, right? Then you use this interface and you realize that this interface is heavily misused by bots and whatnot, but then some other people can build a better system using the same underlying data. So for me, this is the core of Web3. We build the decentralized system. It's not going to be perfect, and people will find a way to misuse it and abuse it. But again, I believe in human ingenuity. I believe in transparency. And when that is seen, and reputation systems, I think that's something that we will do much better job with decentralized systems. So I think we can keep solving the problem. We will never have some kind of ideal solution. So yes, there will be abuse, there will be all kinds of horrible stuff. But again, for me, in this balance, do we just enforce with violence and no recourse versus we have less censorship, we have lack of censorship, impossibility of censorship, and then we have some bad stuff happening. For me, that's a preferable situation, because and then we can keep improving that. And that it would hurt some sensibilities, it would hurt emotions of some people, but again, this is life. I think also this is one of their big wake up moments, is that for some long time, we humans have been kind of looking at the state as, oh, this is our nanny, this is our daddy, they're going to take care of us, they're going to protect us. And now we see, oh, you know what? No, they will horribly misuse the resources, the system for their own good and whatnot. So now, for me, the Web3 movement, the crypto movement, is about shifting the balance of power back to ourselves. And yes, it means that we have to take more responsibility, and that, yes, how do we filter what we see? And then, yes, it means sometimes we will come across something that we're very uncomfortable with. But again, this is the price of adulthood, this is the price of growing up as adults in this and acquiring more self-sovereignty.
And of course, I mean, in Web2, there is a lot of abuse and problems of,
exactly.
It's not that there are no problems. After 10 years, do content on social media. I mean, every day I got abused from haters and scammers and spam. I mean, it's like a never-ending story. So we're not in an ideal scenario today. So that's something to remind to people. 2 minutes and I'll let you go, Dima. And thank you so much for your time. What are some projects that are you keeping an eye on in this moment about, Web3, NFT, DeFi? I mean, is there anything there that you think, wow, Monty, keep an eye on that one, because that's really cool. By the way, I saw Moonbirds recently by Kevin Rose, and they had huge success in NFT land.
Right.
And it's an example of a famous entrepreneur with a great team, and they try to build a good technology there. Is there anything that you see would suggest to my audience?
Frankly, in the last few months, they really taken my attention away from a lot of this stuff and toward this crisis in Ukraine and all the different things that are happening there. And some of them are crypto related. I would say that all of this stuff happening on Ethereum L2, from Arbitrum, Starknet, zk Sync, Optimist, optimism. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff happening there. So I think that, like, for example, recently MakerDAO has announced that they are investing heavily into their level 2 integration with Starknet. So for me, because this is the most feasible solution that I'm seeing longer term for lowering the fees, which becomes very and improving the system throughput, which becomes very foundational for building better systems for like decentralized social media and reputation systems and many other things. So for me, I would, and one awesome resource is Bankless HQ. I have to give them huge props for everything they do for education, and they have a lot of materials on, well, again, I'm like specific L2s. There are lots of them from Optimism and Arbitrum and the Polygon sidechain and many other awesome things. So for me, I'm paying some attention to that. And in terms of NFTs, I think they're still very early on in our experimentation. Like I sat on the sidelines, and last fall and September, I started actually doing quite a bit of collection of one-on-ones, and then I also collected some of their project stuff, but I never got into their CryptoPunks or Bored Apes. They're kind of they didn't make that much sense to me. But again, it's not my criticism of the project. It's more like getting used to the whole concept of digital ownership. I think that this is a big learning for all of the humanity, getting used to the fact that, oh, you know what? Your money, you can own it directly. You can own them in their digital wallet versus like them being held in custody by the banks and then being misused by the bank and the government. And now the same with NFTs and stuff, the digital assets, the asset that, and then maybe some digital land and some kind of metaverse. We're still very early on, and all of those attempts at this stuff, I don't know if they will be long-term successful, but I think it's really important for all of us to try and play with them and experiment and see and learn from them, even if they don't survive, if they become the MySpace of the social media. But I think that their next generation systems, which will be long-term, providers of news and reputation, everything, I think they're coming soon. So I think that's like, it makes a lot of sense for us to just try out many different systems now and play with them just to gain the experience.
Super interesting. Dima, thank you so much. Good luck for everything. I hope to see you soon in person in UK, in Canada, or somewhere else in the world.
Thanks so much, Monty. Awesome talking to you.
Bye.